Well, welcome to Homeward. I am Jim Burns, and I am so happy to be here. I have a smile on my face today because my guest is Wayne Rice. Now, I consider Wayne to be a major influence in my life. I mean, he's a mentor, he's a friend, he's a coworker, and to be honest, he's just one of my favorite people. So I'm so happy to have him. You know, I was a 20-something youth worker, and Wayne was the co-founder of Youth Specialties, the most influential youth ministry organization in the world, maybe ever, and in my opinion. And he brought me on his team, and we traveled together, and we had fun together, and I learned so much from this man. And really, I learned how to do a good seminar. Well, I learned how to do a good seminar. He did great seminars, and I learned so much. He is a legend in my life. So he's the co-founder of Youth Specialties, married to Marcy since 1966. Listen to this, though. 3 kids, 5 grandkids, started Youth Specialties, but then started Understanding Your Teenager seminars. We now do those, as many of you know, at Homeward. In many ways, Wayne was a pioneer in youth ministry, a pioneer in family ministry, and now he's working and living the life with the Legacy Coalition, which is a top international grandparenting ministry, which is wonderful, by the way. If you don't know anything about it, we're talking about that today. I could say so much more. And after the break, we're going to talk about his other life, and that's about bluegrass music. So we're not going to do it for long, but we're going to even give you a little listen in on him playing the banjo. He wrote a book that I recommend all the time. Honestly, I probably do this almost every week. And it's a book called Long Distance Grandparenting. Here you go. So you can see it if you're on the YouTube channel. And it's called Long Distance Grandparenting, Nurturing the Faith of Your Grandchildren When You Can't Be There in Person. I love the book, and I love it because it's so practical, and that's what we're going to talk about today. One of the greatest joys in my life is my grandchildren. I mean, I love this. 10 years ago, Kathy said, I'm going to retire and I'm going to be a fully engaged grandma. And we're so fortunate to have our grandkids with us Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays after school. They drove us nuts yesterday. It was raining here in California, and they drove us nuts. But one of the most difficult things is when your grandkids live a long distance away. And that's actually what happens with Wayne and Marcy's experience. And so they've written a book on it. And I get people all the time who are sometimes struggled, sometimes they just don't know what to do. And we're going to help you a lot. So if you're a grandparent, this is going to be good. You know what? If you're not a grandparent, this could help you help your parents figure this thing out. So Wayne, welcome to the broadcast.
Jim, it's great to be here. And thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. And there's that voice. You know, you do a podcast, and then, you know, you played in a band, and you have this great voice, and there it is.
I have a face for radio.
Yeah, well, you know, me too. You can tell I'm doing the podcast, although we're on YouTube today, so that's a big deal. What is it like? How does it feel to be a long-distance grandparent?
Well, you know, I've had it both ways. You know, our kids, as they grew up and started having kids, they lived close by for quite a few years. Right. I tended to take for granted our grandkids. You know, they were close by. I figured they'd come around now and then, and I just didn't worry about it all that much. But our adult children all moved away for various reasons. It wasn't to get away from us. You know, we sometimes joke that our kids, you know, abandoned us, you know, but really they got good job offers in other parts of the country. So they live now in the Pacific Northwest, around Seattle.
And you're a San Diego boy.
And I'm down in San Diego. And so all of our grandkids left. And it suddenly created an interesting dilemma for us because we weren't really sure how we were going to be able to stay in touch. So we started having to figure it out. Yeah. And so that's kind of once you end up with long, you know, kids who've moved away and your grandkids are far away. I figure you've got 3 choices. You can either just look at it as a good excuse to just sort of go, okay, well, I'm off the hook.
Yeah, you check out.
Or you could just see it as an insurmountable obstacle that you can't overcome. Or you can look at it as a motivator for trying to figure out, okay, now how can I stay connected with my grandkids? Because, you know, it's a biblical imperative for grandparents to stay connected with their grandkids, especially for Christian grandparents, because as Scripture is very clear about. In Deuteronomy 4, it says, teach these things, referring to the story of your salvation. Right. Teach these things to your children. And then there's that little word, and your children's children,
right?
Which in our lingo is the grandkids.
Right.
And so it's a biblical imperative that I didn't even realize was there until I started really looking into it about 10, 12 years ago.
You know, a number of years ago, you wrote a book called Generation to Generation, and that was an aha for me because I didn't have grandkids, so I wasn't thinking about that. I was just trying to get through the teenage years with my all three daughters with hormones and drama. But in reality, there is a biblical view, and I want you to speak. You spoke about that in the book too, but the biblical view of grandparenting means that, and you used the word imperative just a moment ago. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's you could use the word command. I think God actually has commanded His people that the way that the faith gets passed on from one generation to the next is that we pass it on from parent to child, and then on down the line. It's Psalm 78 is all about that. In fact, 5 generations are mentioned in that psalm. Of one generation tells it to another, and then to another, and to another. But it's not like once you've passed it on to your kids that then you're done. The Scripture clearly, and it's all through Scripture, the elders, the older generation is right there alongside the next generation who is teaching it to the next generation until ultimately you're not around anymore. But our job is never over.
Right.
Once our kids leave home, we still have a responsibility, like I say, an imperative, a command, so to speak, where we are commanded to teach these things to our children's children as well as to our children. And so we have to get inventive and figure out right and wrong ways to do that. Right. You don't want to ultimately, parenting is the parent's job. It's not the grandparent's job, and you need to make sure that you're not.
You back off, zip it on that one. Sure.
It's like the title of one of your books about keeping your mouth shut and so forth. You want to keep a good relationship with your adult children, but at the same time, you are there to partner with them and to run alongside of them as they're passing the baton of faith onto their kids.
And I love that you said run alongside, because it really is part of this biblical mandate. Now, one of the reasons I tell people to read your book all the time is because of the idea of connection. Because when you're in a long distance, it's easy. Today, James and Charlotte are going to come over. They're going to see what's in the ice cream, if there's any ice cream there. They're supposed to be doing homework, and we're going to let them pass on that for a little bit and play with them and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, I totally understand it. That's not the case for a lot of people. And you have a section on connection, prayer connection, presence connection. There's another one that I'm going to bring up as well in terms of long-distance connection. But prayer connection, so every parent, every grandparent can be praying for their kids. How do you have some practical ideas on how to make that happen?
Yeah, prayer is, when I make a list of, for long-distance grandparents, ways to stay connected, prayer is number one on my list. And the reason for that is it's something that I can do and do
every day.
Every day. Sure, I pray for our grandkids. I did it today. And there's a lot of things you can pray about, for your grandkids. But I like to tell grandparents that with prayer there is no distance. Yeah. Whether you're praying for your kids in the next room or you're praying for your kids 1,000 miles away, to God there is no distance. And so we can take our grandkids to the Lord every day and know that He hears our prayers and that our prayers are important and needed by our grandkids. And it's one thing you can always let your grandkids know is that you are praying for them, and they appreciate that. Even those who may not be walking with Jesus themselves, they appreciate.
No, you can get away with stuff that parents can't.
Prayers, so you can you let your grandkids know that you're praying for them.
Love it.
And I've got a cousin, and I mentioned this in the book, who lives in Tennessee.
Yeah.
His name is Justin Rice, and he has 7 grandkids. Right. And so one year for Christmas, he asked all of his grandkids, and he gave them like a link on Amazon and said, you can go to this link and you can order a coffee mug for me with your picture on it. You just send the picture in, and they put your picture on a coffee mug.
I love that idea. I remember reading it.
and that's what I want for Christmas this year. I want coffee mugs of all 7 of my grandkids. Yeah. And so they did that. And I've got a picture of Justin with all of his coffee mugs lined up. But what he's done is he's assigned a day of the week. It just so happens that he has 7 grandkids, 7 days of the week. Yeah. And on those days, he has coffee from that grandchild's coffee mug and prays for that grandchild.
Okay, I need to do that. I remember reading that, and I wanted to do it then, and I read it, some time ago. I totally need to do that. We have a little guy, 5 years old. His name is Huxley. And I write out my prayers. And so sometimes I started showing my grandkids, like Huxley gets on my lap, and I said, Huxley, I pray for you every day. Look at that. This is your name. He's only 5. I think I showed it to him when he was 4. And he comes back the next time we saw him, and he's in our opinion, it's long distance because it's an hour and 15 minutes with this one. And he goes, I want to see Huxley. And I went, you are Huxley. You want to look at the mirror? And he opened up the journal. And he didn't know how to find Huxley, but he wanted me to point that I had prayed for Huxley and his little brother Bodie. And I went, how interesting that here's a kid who's even that age that knows that Papa J, for me, is going to do that. I think that's so good and so key. We can't miss that. That's not an add-on at the end for grandparenting. That's a major issue because honestly, how many times do you hear it was the praying grandma? It was the praying grandpa who got me through some tough times even in my teen years or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's what we can do. Also, you talk about presence. And again, on long distance, it's a little tougher to have presence. I know there is a thing that somebody invented in the 80s called the worldwide internet. It's pretty amazing. But how do you stay present? I remember a time talking to Marcy years ago, and it might even have been before long distance grandparenting came out. But I said to your wife, how is it having, it was Nate's kids in Seattle. I go, how is it having, and her eyes welled up with tears. And she goes, it's hard. And she didn't mean it's impossible. She has the same beautiful philosophy that you have. But she said, it was hard. It's hard. We're not present.
Yeah, and that's why, in the Legacy Coalition, we use the word intentional a lot. It's not, we certainly don't own that idea. It's used a lot in a lot of different situations, but we talk about intentional Christian grandparenting. And I think with long-distance grandparenting, it's especially important that you're intentional about it. Yeah. It doesn't happen automatically. Yeah. When your grandkids are far away, it's real easy to just go for days, if not weeks or months, without actually reaching out to them. Right. And having that connection. And that's why a lot of the ideas that I've tried to give grandparents are ways you can intentionally arrange for connections.
So give us an idea.
Well, you brought up my wife, Marcy. Well, she and our granddaughter, Maddie, have a scheduled phone call every week.
I love that.
And they'll spend an hour or more on the phone with each other. And in fact, just last night, Marcy spent a good amount of time talking with Maddie on the phone. And, she's a young lady now. She's graduated from college and she's got a job. But Marcy has done this with Maddie. Right. For maybe 15 years or so while she was a teenager. And our son, Nate, would always tell us, you have no idea how important those calls are to Maddie. She'll tell you things she'll never tell us.
Exactly.
And that's continued. Yeah. And I used to always tell parents, and I think, I can say to grandparents the same thing. I think that the relationship that you have with your grandkids while they're young becomes then a foundation for the kind of relationship you'll have with them when they're adults.
No, and I'm going to ask you about that at the end because I want to talk about when the kids get older. But what I hear you saying is you build that relationship as a foundation early on, and then it develops. And honestly, a grandma having a conversation for an hour or less on a regular basis is great. And yet I'm saying to our listeners, our people who are watching, don't expect, like I had a conversation with James the other day. He played football and I missed it because I had COVID. And so I said, how'd it go? And he goes, good, bye. And he was gone. He didn't want, and I was missing him. I wanted to tell him I was so sorry I missed it. I heard he got hit in the eye with the ball and all that. He didn't want to talk about that. He was like, okay, bye. I'm 10 and I'm done. But you still got to do that. So long distance connection is really, building this presence. What are just a couple of other ideas that you do when it's in the long distance? Because I think
the obvious things, Jim, is and I tell grandparents this that you're going to have to take the initiative to figure out how to actually not just using the internet,
right.
so which you brought up, but to actually plan visits.
Sure.
For some people. That's easy to do. For others, it's hard to do.
Right.
It's hard for us to do because my wife has a disability, which does not allow her to travel.
Right.
She can't get on an airplane. She can't hardly go anywhere without taking all kinds of medical equipment and everything. Yeah. It's just a hard thing for us.
Life is complicated. You're right.
To get to Seattle to visit our grandkids. So, but before her disability, and there was a before, we were able to do that on several occasions.
Yeah.
Just carve it out, put it on our calendar, plan it in advance. So I tell grandparents, if for long distance grandparenting, you're going to need to start putting your grandkids on your calendar.
Yeah.
Figure out how many times, so you schedule not only phone calls or other things, but visits, or when can you bring them to you?
Right.
We've done that a number of times.
Right.
None of our kids or grandkids are independently wealthy.
Right.
And while neither are we've been able to set aside budget, so not only put it on your calendar, put it in your budget to make arrangements so that you can have the kind of one-on-one times with your grandkids and your kids, with your family. We did a family reunion a year or so ago where we rented an Airbnb because our house is too small for everybody. And so we could all be together for a few days. It was expensive, but, a lot of things are expensive, and this is important, to be together with your family.
I hear you. We have a very expensive trip coming up with our entire family. It was my idea to bring everybody to Hawaii, and I get free frequent flyer miles and all that. So I'm like, it's only $5.60. Well, I kind of miss the Airbnb and the food, and I'm looking at the budget. Literally, this is next week for us. And I'm like, this is maybe 3 times as much as I thought I was going to spend. But you know what? I said to Kathy, we're not going to, it's a harder shot for today, but we're going to treasure that, and our kids will treasure that. And I'm not saying you have to go to Hawaii or you have to rent an Airbnb, but those kinds of things, I agree with you. That is so right. It's the long-distance connection. Lots of amazing ideas in the book, Long Distance Grandparenting. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Here's a copy of the book, and honestly, I tell everybody to go get this book. This is just not because I'm on this podcast. I tell people to get it all the time. When we come back, I'm going to ask Wayne about bluegrass because this is a bluegrass kind of guy, and he actually traveled with Johnny Cash. So we'll talk about this in a bit. So by the way, all things Wayne Rice are on our podcast show notes, and also the Legacy Coalition. We're putting information on that because it's such a great organization. I believe in it 150%. And it's in the show notes where you can hear more about it. They have a summit. They have his podcast, which is amazing. And you want to tie into this if you can. So again, all things Wayne Rice podcast show notes. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore, I'll fly away, I'll fly away.
Years ago when I was just a boy in the Oklahoma hills, we didn't have a church in which to pray. So the people got together and they built one of their own, just a shelter made of poles with a roof of hay.
Oh, man, I am in the mood. That's crazy. That's Wayne Rice on the banjo some years ago. Okay, he was with a group called Brush Arbor. Wayne, you were with a group called Brush Arbor. You toured with Johnny Cash. We're not talking like small things here, but you've been a leader in bluegrass for like 50 plus years. I know you look much younger, but you've been there, you've been around. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with bluegrass, just for the fun of it here.
Yeah, well, the short story is back when I was doing youth ministry in the 60s, the whole folk music scare came into play. Everybody was trying to learn to play guitars and banjos, and so in Youth for Christ, which I started out in Youth for Christ, we were putting on hootenannies. Now, there's a word you probably didn't expect to hear today.
It's never been said on the Homered with Jim Burns podcast.
We put on a hootenanny, and so we were looking for folk groups. Well,
Elijah plays music. Do you know what a hootenanny is? Have you ever heard it? He's heard the word. He's a youth pastor. He has no idea.
It's kind of a precursor to what would today be, like a concert,
sure,
whatever. But it was all folk music, and so my brothers and I went out and learned to play instruments. My brother played guitar. My younger brother picked up the mandolin. I started playing the banjo, and we formed a little family band called the Rice Krispies. And we used to play then for youth groups and hootenannies and whatnot. And then later, when the group kind of morphed into a little bit bigger group because we were just expanding, and we played a talent contest. And part of the talent contest was we got to perform in front of some like record producers who liked us, signed us to a major label, and the next thing you know, we were on the Grand Ole Opry, and it just happened really fast. And that was the group Brush Arbor, and so we did a couple of albums for Capitol Records. We got to tour with Merle Haggard and Marty Robbins and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash, and did a bunch of TV shows, Hee Haw. They got to
tour with you. Hey, do you remember?
No, we were their opening act.
You and I were speaking in Memphis. And you said you want to go to the Grand Ole Opry. I honestly didn't know one Grand Ole Opry. I mean, you're looking at a Beach Boys, Beatles kind of guy. And so we got in a car after we spoke. I think we finished about 4 o'clock. And we rushed to Nashville, Tennessee. I think it was 3 hours or something, 2.5 hours. And you took me backstage, and I didn't know any of those people. And they happened to all show up that night. It was the Grand Ole Opry. They all knew you, of course, from your 50 years of the bluegrass special that you do. It was a radio show in San Diego, still going on. And I had the time of my life. And I wrote you just a couple of weeks ago and said I went for the second time because I just went a couple of weeks ago to the Grand Ole Opry, and I didn't know anybody still, and I didn't get any back. I could tell people were backstage, but I wasn't there.
Yeah,
I had a blast.
One of my favorite Jim Burns stories is introducing you backstage at the Opry to Roy Acuff, the king of country music. Right. And you were very cordial, shook hands and everything. And then we walked away. And Jim says, "Who was that guy?"
Who was that guy? I know. My father almost disowned me because he loved country music. As we digress, let's talk about holidays. You have a good section in this because a lot of people really struggle around the holidays, special occasions with the long distance grandparenting stuff with their kids, with their own children, and then their grandchildren. You've got some good ideas on how to make the holidays come alive, and you're not saying buy those grandkids, tube socks and underwear. You're not saying that's the only thing you do as a grandparent. You got to be fun. So talk about that.
Yeah, well, with most of the holidays, they just open up good opportunities to be generous, with your grandkids, and also times to get together, whether it's at Thanksgiving or at Easter. Mm-hmm. I mentioned we did a big kind of a family reunion just recently, and we did it at Easter because as our kids were growing up. We always did a big Easter celebration in our backyard with a lot of friends and family, and music and potluck.
I remember that.
And it was something that they just grew up with. And so we've always taught our kids that Easter is the most important holiday of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, Christmas is great.
Sure.
And the second most important was our wedding anniversary.
Now, that is random. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, we always made sure that our kids celebrated our anniversary.
That is so
with us.
cool.
Yeah.
I've never.
We
heard
made
of that.
them bring us gifts.
How'd that work?
No,
When
it's
they were
always been
teenagers,
good.
did
In
they-
fact, Marcy and I, at our next anniversary, will have been married 60 years.
60 years. You're in
Same as
the top
the Super Bowl.
1%.
Yeah, and so
1% in the United States of people making.
so our kids are already planning, what to do
Crazy.
for our anniversary, because they know that our anniversary is real important, and it's important to them. Without our anniversary, they wouldn't exist.
That's a great point.
So it's something worth. It's a holiday.
Yeah. I'm sending
But,
this podcast to my kids. I don't think they've ever even they couldn't tell you when we were married.
But we're trying to just help our kids not go into debt. Trying to celebrate
Sure.
our this or any other
Yeah.
holiday. But most of the ideas in the book are fairly straightforward holiday things that you can do with your grandkids.
Yeah. They're basic. They're simple.
But,
not always easy. But
the main
they're,
idea is that the holidays open up
right.
opportunities for you to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
To be intentional.
Yeah.
And to add some meaning to it. And remember, our goal in everything is that we want to pass on our faith and our values.
Right.
And we're not just in the entertainment business trying to be the fun grandparents, although that helps.
No, you got to be both.
Yeah. So I think anything you can do to make the holidays special and where kids can tap into the meaning of it is all really good.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. You talked about adult children, and again, grandchildren. Right now, I'm not in that category. You guys are, but adult children, the relationship changes because now it's an adult to an adult relationship, and you have a great ability to have an impact on your adult children. At the same time, some of those adult children have walked from faith. They've struggled like crazy. Today we're talking about long-distance grandparenting, but we're also talking about really helping from generation to generation them find faith. What can you do with the adult children that really maybe their parents can't even do, as long as you have the permission of the parents? What can you do to help enhance that relationship with those kids? I mean, one is the perfect illustration that you just gave with Marcy. My gosh, to do it on a weekly basis is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I we're probably not alone in that we have kids and grandkids who are not following Jesus the way we follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Their faith is very different, and it's their own. And we do have what I don't call them prodigals. Sometimes I think that's a really
I don't like that name either.
Negative kind of terminology, but they're not following us in the same way that we follow Jesus, and so they have their own views on things, and so we have to first of all respect when they're raising their kids according to a certain worldview that's different from ours. We have to respect that. Right. At the same time, we have asked for permission and been given permission to fully live out our faith in front of our grandkids. Right. We don't have to pretend that we're not who we really are. Right. And so we take opportunities to, I think, again, prayer is one of the big ways we do that, is when we're with our grandkids, we pray for them. Yeah. And pray for them and bless them, give them blessings.
Yeah. It's that generational blessing
and
that they appreciate.
And they always appreciate it, even if they're not following Jesus the way that we are. I think we want to tell our stories. You know, as you know, a few years ago I wrote my autobiography.
I know. I've read it.
and I only made enough copies for my family and my very good friends.
Yeah, you snuck one to me.
I gave
read
one
it.
to you.
I asked
but I actually had it published. It's got pictures and the whole thing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But my goal was, because I'm not with my grandkids very often, and because in their homes they're not necessarily hearing the gospel or seeing how God works on a daily basis, I could write my story and let them see how God was at work in my life, that I was part of God's big story, and then also communicate to them that they could be part of it as well. That they're still part of the same story that I've been living all my life. And I just wanted to put it into words. Now, I don't think all of my grandkids sat down and read it cover to cover, but I know that they all have their copies.
And there's pictures in it.
And
so at least they saw the pictures.
It's interesting. I think there's some fun stuff in it. But also I get to tell my grandkids how I came to know Jesus and what God has done in our lives. You know, my wife had a brain tumor 25 years ago, and what a miracle it was that the people of God came together and prayed for her, and she was healed.
And that she's still here.
It was amazing, and because they love their grandma, and I want all the glory to go to God, but we don't have to get preachy about it. We can give our grandkids ways to know who we are, what we believe, what's important to them. You know, I mentioned in the book that one of the reasons I believe in long-distance grandparenting is I never knew my grandparents very well at all because they lived in Tennessee.
Clarksville, Tennessee. Is that right?
Yeah, Clarksville. I was born in Tennessee. Our parents moved out west, and so our grandparents...
Your parents moved out west, but your accent stayed. So I'm just telling you, still got that more and more.
Not much. But I only got to see our grandparents like when we'd go on vacations back to Tennessee, which was kind of our annual vacation.
Right.
And but one thing they would always do is they'd put their hands on our heads and they just pray heaven down over us. And it made a huge impression. On us.
No, it's really...
And my brothers and I just grew up knowing we come from a long line of people who had a close relationship with God.
No, that's really good. I don't remember if you spent much time in the book, and we've got to close this up, but I just wrote, I have my to-do list from this conversation. I wasn't thinking you're going to give me things to do, but I need to write my story for my kids, because what I find is that my grandkids, like, I tell them my testimony, and they're younger, so they don't totally understand that at 16 I became a Christian, and campus life, just like you. Campus life was you were a leader in it. I was in it as a kid. But they need to hear that, and we do need to tell them our faith stories, and we can do that with our adult children. Will totally understand that, and maybe that'll bring some of them back. Wayne, this has been great. Thank you so much.
It's good to hang with you, Jim.
Good to be with
you. Let me just say too that for long distance grandparents, one advantage we have that my grandparents did not have is our phones.
Exactly.
The internet, Zoom calls. I mean, the technology is pretty amazing.
Oh, it is.
And that's another. It almost goes without saying nowadays that we can use the media that we have, and even some of the old media. One of our grandkids had a birthday this week. Birthday cards are still good, especially one that has a little cash in it.
Exactly.
And so I used to always tell youth workers to use the mail. Junior high kids they'll take anything, occupant, and our grandkids are no different. They love to get mail.
No, it's true.
They don't always check their mail every day, like
not
we
even
used
thinking
to.
about it, but their parents can do that.
But to send handwritten notes, that kind of stuff, is a great way to stay connected. We've got a lot of tools at our disposal today that
that's right.
generations of the past did not have.
And we have.
So there's no excuse.
We have tools. We also have those things like cards. I mean, I loved getting a card from my grandma. I don't do that now. I mean, they get a card at their birthday. We hand it to them.
Yeah.
But no, to send them something in the mail is such a great idea. Friends, pick up the book. It's called Long Distance Grandparenting. It's filled with ideas. And you know what? I like this book, too, because it's kind of thin. I like thin books. But it's really, you can tell, it's so helpful. He's written over 30 books. Go to WayneRice.com. All of the information is in the show notes. Legacy Coalition you can hear more about as well. And, don't forget, maybe you need to go on YouTube and look at some of these old. I went on YouTube. I found an old thing with him singing with Johnny Cash, and it was great. He had hair, and I think Johnny Cash had hair, and it was pretty amazing. But it was a long time ago. It was in New York, of all things, on the big stage. I don't know where were you on that? Do you know where?
Well, we were actually in the same studio where they filmed Saturday Night Live.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah,
Rockefeller Center.
Oh my goodness, Rockefeller Center. So good to be with you, Wayne. We're going to have you back because you've written another book on helping kids, not just grandkids, but helping kids and grandkids, really be inspired by the Bible by actually using fun and humor, and it's just so you. So we're gonna keep talking about that. People who are on the YouTube thing will see that we're wearing the same shirt, even though it's a different day. But we're gonna do two here. Hey, but before we go, let me tell you my grandma's story. So my grandma's name was Nene. My oldest brother, Bobby, couldn't say the word grandma, so called her Nene, Nene. Find out later, because I do quite a bit of work in Hawaii, that Nene, Nene, is a goose. And it's the funniest thing because Nene walked like a goose. She was 4'11" by 4'11", little chubby gal. And we always said she cussed like a sailor. Now, I don't know a lot of sailors who cuss, but we always said that about her, and she cussed. So anyway, she worked in a shipyard. She was quite a character. She wasn't a strong faith person, but in my life, she was the party time grandma. And like Wayne said, I mean, you can have fun. There's other things to do too. But for me, her influence was that I knew I was loved. And she would slip in the dollar bill. She didn't have a lot of money. She cleaned what she called old people's houses when she was in her 60s, and these people were like younger than her. Okay, that's who Nene was. But she was a great lady, so fun, so generous, and really one of the greatest influences in my life. And I noticed that my mom took that on once Nene passed. She had Alzheimer's, and she made it through my three girls. My daughter, Heidi, was just born, and I got a picture, and she died. But she was the party time grandma, and that's why she was so influential in my life. And she paid attention to me. And today, if it would have been a long-distance relationship, she would have figured out how to get on a Zoom call and connect with me, because that's who she was. And now I'm trying to be that party time grandpa. And again, that doesn't mean that you don't deal with other issues, but you got to be fun, okay? So don't send the socks and the underwear. Just slip in the now not dollar, but slip in the $5 if you can. But whether you are long distance or not, be fun, be generous, be caring, and today you can be present, okay? I hope you'll subscribe to our podcast. Homeward is all over the world. It's unbelievable what's going on. Someone probably needed to hear this. Okay, we had fun chit-chatting, but in between there was a lot of good content that they needed to hear. So how about sending it to a friend, send it to a family member, and as always, I just look forward and appreciate and love you for being a part of our life. Until next time, I'm Jim Burns.